All right, joining me now to discuss tariff and tax cuts is the president of the National Taxpayers Union, Pete Sepp. Pete, thanks for joining us. So here's something. Look, I understand that there are going to be some old school Republicans, or at least mid school maybe, that this would be considered like just a non-starter. But if we're losing billions of dollars, why would we continue doing that? And for the Democrats, they're complaining as well, yet they want to tax our companies. So a tax on American companies is a tariff by another name.
Yeah, it's hard to know where to turn here for reliable news and views on the trade situation because as Democrats who have suddenly converted to the fact that more than half of American households own stock, and it's a big deal to them when the stock market declines. They sure weren't talking about that during Joe Biden's administration. But setting that aside, look, the economic disruptions here could be long-term, in which case the net pain might not be worth the gain, or they could be short-term, in which case negotiations occur, we bring the tariffs down, and we get to other central fiscal policy problems, like preventing a $4 trillion plus tax increase, preventing a meltdown over federal deficit spending, which is still far, far too high. Those things have to be taken in context with trade policy too. I think you're making a good point here that there are a lot of moving parts.
Well, I think, unfortunately, the rest of the media has already written the headlines if Trump fails. They haven't written them if he succeeds. If Donald Trump succeeds here, this is like Mount Rushmore stuff because we're all going to benefit, right? We talk about prices going up during inflation and snarled supply chains and high energy prices. If Donald Trump can use the leverage and, as he likes to say, play the cards, and we get even reduced tariffs, not entirely zero, but a substantial reduction, we're all going to save money here.
Yeah, and you already are seeing offers, for example, from the European Union saying, well, we can go for zero tariffs both ways on manufactured goods. They won't necessarily budge on agricultural products, but take them up on that. Anything to keep stabilizing some of the markets while also having these kinds of wins for fairer and freer trade. I would take that deal. I would certainly push forward with that if I were the president. I would also be looking at how we can reduce some of the shocks that financial markets are experiencing by having a little more certainty, revealing who is asking for these negotiations among foreign countries and giving us an update on how they're going. The more we can reassure the rest of the economy and the rest of the world that we're doing deals here that are going to benefit everybody, not just Americans, but everyone around the world, we're all going to be better off.
Yeah, can you imagine if we had a 0% corporate tax here? I mean, then that would be your offset right there because you'd want to produce more stuff here. But I get it if you walk into, let's say, a Walmart and you buy a pair of generic shoes that might cost you $12.99. There's your low price. But in the big brands like Nike, they went overseas and they're still charging over $100 for a pair of shoes. So, when you have these companies that will virtue signal on social issues, it seems like the Democrats leave them alone as long as they say the right things. But isn't one of the greatest things we can do for our workforce is to open the foreign markets and bring down those tariffs? So yeah, they'll face competition at home, but they'll have new customers around the world. That's the best possible thing that can happen to an American worker, especially someone in the union.
Oh, for sure. And of course, let's not forget that many left-wing Democrats think the solution to all of this is to simply have more state and federal subsidies for businesses so that they can control them and get into their boardrooms and tell them how to make their decisions. That's what happens in a lot of these high tax, high tariff countries that are all over the world. We don't want to emulate that. To your point, we need to be working towards lower taxes in our own country to keep attracting that foreign direct investment and to keep bringing factories and other jobs back here to the United States. You can do that without having to subsidize these industries like other countries do.
And what do? You think about this, the billions, if not trillions of dollars over decades that we've lost because of this. If that was here, we wouldn't have to constantly raise taxes. That would be fun. That would be fungible, correct? Like we would have more growth in our economy, more people earning more money, more people paying taxes. That would be it would be a win, a win, a win. I got 2 minutes.
Yeah, you don't have to raise revenues for government by raising tax rates. You grow the number of taxpayers, you grow the economy, you grow the manufacturing pie, the services pie, you innovate. All of those things create an economic environment where revenues increase to governments naturally. And that's certainly one helpful side of the spending and revenue ledger that we need to address, but we also have to address that spending. We cannot afford to continue the massive increases in federal spending that have been occurring. Just since 2019, we're talking about a 35% plus run up in federal spending after inflation. That cannot be sustained. The president has to get on those issues too while tackling taxes and tariffs. That's going to be the most important legacy I think he can leave, is to start stabilizing the federal budget to the point where it's more affordable, not only for us, but future generations.
Yeah, and there was a Democrat who used to believe that if you released more dollars from taxation, that would grow the economy, create more jobs, and bring in more revenue. And his name was John F. Kennedy. Okay, so this is not some new idea. I have to leave it there, Pete. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.